Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we also love talking about science and innovation. We're honored to be joined by Dr. Jolieke van Oosterwijk. She's the Chief Scientific Officer with US Biologic. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So we have a lot to dive in, and especially when you talk about the science of what you're working on. But let's start with some context. When you talk about US Biologic, give us an overview of the company.
Of course. So US Biologic, we are a small company in the medical district here in Memphis. And we are focused on global disease prevention and pandemic prevention. And in that realm, we are developing oral vaccines. So no more shots, it's all oral, and it's for animals and humans. And of course, we're focusing on the fact that they're safe and effective, but also that they're cost efficient, so they're easy, and very much focused on what we call vaccine equity, so that everyone has equal access to these vaccines.
And I think that's where this is a game changer. I myself, I'm not a big fan of getting shots. And so when you talk about being able to take a gummy for like a flu vaccine, that's huge news. And so give us some background on how long you've been working on this, like the process leading up to this, because this is obviously not an overnight deal. So let's start talking about the science and the evolution of this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, this is definitely not an overnight deal. We've been working on this. So it comes from what I was just saying, like where we were thinking of, if you want to prevent pandemics, and we saw this with COVID the last couple of years, we know that a lot of these diseases come from animals. And if we want to start vaccinating animals, we cannot just go run after animals, right, and start injecting them. So all of our vaccines, therefore, had to be stable, and you could have to store them at room temperature, because we also saw this in the last 2 years, that there was not enough freezer space, and it was difficult to reach remote areas. So that's been a focus. And then the other focus, so like thermostability is what we call it, so stable at room temperature, but then also ease of access, so that animals and humans would take it willingly. You didn't need to go to a centralized location, you don't to get that shot, but rather ideally in the future you would just get this sent through the mail. And for animals, they all of our animals love a treat, right? And so do we humans. So that's how this evolved. So we started really looking at the source of these diseases and creating these vaccines for animals. And now with flu, we know like this, we have the bird flu. We saw this on the news this year. But human flu, right? We go to get a shot every year. So why not make an edible flu vaccine where we can just get it in the mail each year. We don't have to go to our pharmacy or our doctor to go get it. So really to make sure that people in remote areas, but also in the city, just can go get it if you, either because you don't have time with work to go get it, or you are afraid of needles, to really make this much more accessible.
Maybe a silly question, but I'm curious, for when you talk about humans versus animals, is there a difference in terms of dosage, flavoring, what would be consumable for a human adult versus maybe a child, versus something that when you talk about a pet or even out in the field, like for rats and rodents and things like that, are there differences?
Yes, there definitely are. We're not going to ask humans to eat rodent feet. But that also comes, so for rodents in the wild, right? So we put something out. We thought we had to flavor it, but turns out we don't, because rodents, like we all know, when we have them in our yards, they eat just about anything. There, it was more focused. So for wildlife vaccines, we're focusing on not feeding the animals, so that it's something that's completely void of any nutrients, because we don't want to start inviting animals into our yards, right? So there is just something, like air, but like a little bit more substance. So that's where that comes. The biggest change or difference between certain animals and humans, like a mouse and a rat have very similar digestive system as humans, but a cow does not, right? There's more stomachs to deal with. So that there the formulation starts to differ a little bit. But the what it looks like, what you're getting, that is going to really depend on the animal, just what they like. So for a dog would be like a bone shape, that has nothing to do with the efficacy, right? But like dogs are more inclined to eat something bone shaped than humans are. And then for chickens, it might be more powder, right? So like that would be much easier. And then for humans, the gummy was just because everybody likes gummies. No one has. I haven't met someone that doesn't like a gummy, and it's easy to make without any additives that people might be allergic to.
Yeah, I mean, I love gummies, but I also think it's important when you kind of look at what you're doing, being able to broaden that scope so that all the different animals have access. Because when you talk about dealing with these sort of issues, you've got to look at the big picture. And so I love the fact that you are looking at the big picture and how can you diversify what you're doing to be able to be effective. Give us an idea of kind of the collaborative side of this, because when you talk about, especially for a flu vaccine, being able to do a gummy, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of clearances, collaboration, distribution. Walk us through kind of some of the business side of those pieces of pulling all this together.
Yeah, that's a very good question because not only business, but it's also very much our philosophy. We don't believe that we are experts in everything because no one can be. So we definitely always look with other universities, other companies, government agencies. We definitely work very, very closely together with them on all of our different products. For flu, for example, we work with the experts here in Memphis, and it's a contract through BARDA. So that is from the Department of Health and Human Services. So, and that then leads into a lot of FDA contacts. So yeah, we are definitely always seeking those experts in the field to guide us to make sure that what we're doing will lead to a product soon. And yeah, I think that's really just more like it's very clearly in our philosophy, find those people that know and then work together and collectively lead to innovation.
What's something for you on the science side that is either fascinating or you wish the public knew when you talk about the formula, what it takes to put all these pieces together to create a gummy? Like what's something that really is neat and exciting for you in terms of all of these pieces coming together?
Yeah, so the thing about like why we normally get a needle shot and we've never done gummies like as a field is that our stomachs are so much designed to like degrade everything we're eating, right? Because like when we eat a steak, it has a lot of protein, and the protein needs to be broken down for us to get all the nutrients out. Now, if we're talking about a vaccine, it's a protein. So if you were to just, break open that vial and just swallow it, your stomach is designed to completely break that down, and there's no efficacy. So that's where the science is really cool because like where we developed that what we call an enteric coating formulation that protects it from the stomach. So you eat it, it's in your stomach, nothing happens to it. But then when it leaves your stomach and goes into your intestines where there are immune cells available and constantly on the lookout that we didn't eat like a bad chicken, we like that's when it starts breaking apart and your vaccine becomes available and starts getting into contact with your immune system. So it's something really cool to see. And I'm excited every day when new results come in, when we are also like, we're not only defining how this is done, but we're also doing a lot of like the exploring. And that's really exciting.
You mentioned earlier that, this can be applied to a lot of different things. And so when you talk about kind of where this will lead us in the future, talk about some of those elements. So in other words, well beyond just a flu vaccine, talk about what this means potential for the future.
So hopefully, right, like our goal is that this becomes widely available for all animals and humans. And we have very much focused on reducing the production process so that like if there were an outbreak of disease X in Iowa, that creates a signal where we can immediately start producing it and it's available. So we want to create that platform where the production process is standardized and it's just about which disease that can what we call as a plug and play platform. So we can just put it right in produce it and immediately send it to where it's needed. And due to the thermostability of it, it can just go through regular mail, right? We don't need to charter planes with these -80 freezers. So that's our goal. And I'm not just talking Iowa, I'm talking Asia, Africa, everywhere in the world.
Give us a little of your personal background and what led you to US Biologic.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Europe, from the Netherlands. And while I was doing my PhD there, I got recruited by St. Jude to come there. I was doing drug development and for cancer research. So that's how I came to St. Jude here in Memphis, worked in AML, so leukemia, childhood leukemia field. And that's when I was in the lab, one of the founders, our regulatory officer, and we were in the lab together. He left to start the company. I stayed, but we always kept in touch, and it was just fascinating to me. And I started seeing a lot of the overlaps in drug design for cancer and vaccine design. It was always focused on, in the cancer field, reducing side effects and ease of administration. So how can patients, especially the little ones, right, take this more easily and have none of the side effects that are so horrible? So I started seeing all this overlap, and then that's how I joined. And it's been very exciting.
How has the pandemic, and when you talk about COVID-19 and needing to find a response, an effective response, a vaccine quickly and scale it on a level that may not have ever been, seen before, how has that played a role on, kind of elevating, accelerating, for what you're doing? How has that played a role in affecting what you're doing?
Well, the biggest change for me is I don't no longer have to explain to people that diseases come from animals, right? We're much more aware of it. And this pandemic threat, which was always a, doomsday scenario, now we are all very much aware that this is, a real threat, and it's going to happen, and we want to get a next one and a next one, and that we need to start being prepared for this. So I think people have been more receptive towards the way US Biologic is approaching this problem by looking at wildlife and pets and all the food animals, and to start looking there and preventing disease rather than responding to disease.
Yeah, very good insight. How can we help? I think, by sharing this interview and people being more aware, especially of kind of what opportunities are coming down the pipeline, I think that's huge. But how can the community help your efforts?
So I think awareness, people need to know that what we're doing, and we are always open to any type of collaboration, any insights. If people have products that they would want to start testing, try the technology. If it's available, if we could possibly make it available orally, we're always open to those kind of opportunities. Because in the end, it's about the people. We want to get this to the people.
How has being based in the Mid-South, how has that played a role? I think there is an advantage when you talk about the transportation and logistics and access, especially globally. There's that piece. I know there's a very large, you mentioned St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, a very large biomed industry, a huge entrepreneurial ecosystem. How has all of this kind of played a role?
I think definitely the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the willingness of people to start accepting something they haven't heard of yet and to listen. Like Memphis is more the medical device, like this whole the biomedical field is coming up, but I think definitely Memphis is very fertile breeding ground for these types of innovative ideas. And then, of course, like you said, also we have FedEx right around the corner, right? I think it's, people always think Boston or California, but you could also, like, Memphis is not saturated. We've got a lot of talent here, University of Memphis, UT, we've got St. Jude, and I think people are very much collaborative here in Memphis. So
give me one more thing that puts a smile on your face when you look at what you're doing and what this means for the future, not just, of our cities, our states and nation, but really for mankind as a whole. What puts a smile on your face?
So for me, that vaccine equity, that everyone has equal access, that is the ultimate goal. And that it doesn't matter where you live, who you are, or what you are in the case of an animal, you can get the vaccine.
Well, the last question is always the easy one, is where do we go to learn more and be in the loop? And so talk about website, social media, where do we go to learn more?
So yeah, go to usbiologic.com is our website. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, obviously. Oh yeah.
Just go to social media, go to the
Go
website,
to social
you'll find
media.
us. The power of Google, just Google
Yeah,
US Biologic and you'll
Google.
find us everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, definitely appreciate all you and your amazing team are doing. I'm excited for what it means for all of us. And so thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.